You got your first tournament data for Burst Protocol. Make sure you guys smash the link, crap out of that subscribe button so you guys don't miss out more Oz content. And check out code IMCO40 over on Kong's Cards to save you on your purchase on anything you're going to need. We just had a huge event over the weekend here to mark the beginning of this set. And honestly, it's quite interesting. So your top 16 breakdown, we will have your top 32 rest of top deck list later this afternoon for you guys to look over. So we had 5 Radiant Typhoon in your top 16, of which both of those Radiant Typhoon list ended up being first and second, actually. The deck was able to overcome quite a lot of odds and actually sit on the top of the throne as one of the big challengers out of the weekend. Now, we also had 2 Vanquish Soul decks. Vanquish Soul was predicted to be one of the bigger challengers within the meta, and it honestly, it lived up to the standard, but it did feel a little bit behind in certain matchups. We also had 2 Orcust decks. Now, Orcust is a little bit of a coin flip into the list, or into Radiant Typhoon, because the deck can actually just bounce your field back, and you end up struggling a little bit to kind of get some recoverability off of that. We also had 2 Malice challengers. Contrary to what you might think, Malice actually, did pretty all right this weekend. I think that was one of the decks that I was most surprised to see was doing well. We also had a Mitsurugi Odotic pile. One of the most chaotic lists that I've seen out of this tournament. Actually really shocked me. We did have Lunalight. Obviously, this deck has been dubbed the scary deck of the meta. I don't really blame people for that because people aren't respecting it enough. We did have an Exosister challenger. We also only had 1 Draco Tail list, which is crazy considering the fact that Draco Tail is supposed to be one of the best decks in the room. And we also had a Sky Striker challenger coming into the arena as well, which is, it's some diversity. Let's pass on over to deck list. All right, so starting things off here, we have our first place list. And yes, we are playing Pot of Extravagance in Radiant Typhoon. This is actually a really, really good call. The ability for them to generate draw power and advantage was one of the key highlights of this. Also, Win being a stupidly good card for the mirror match. Really did some crazy work. We've also got the end board piece now, but also, the good advantage package of this. Very strong. Next up was our second place Radiant Typhoon list. You see Ghost Spells. We're also going with 2 droplets in this list, which also felt very strong. Fallen and Virtuous being another one of those broken centerpieces that allowed this deck to do its thing. And also, you get to see, once again, Win being that crazy mirror match piece, and Double Cyclone to kind of give you that chance to kind of be able to handle this to do the thing. Also, Fortune Tune did put in a lot of work to make that quick Zeus to clear up some fields. Next up here, we had some Vanquish Soul for top 4. Now, obviously, we did see some Shifter abuse this weekend, though I will say there were a lot of times where Shifter just kind of fell short. Holly Sue being limited to 1 doesn't hurt this deck as much as you would think. I think the loss of Joe Cool actually hurt things a lot. Also, watching decks actually functionally play around that there can only be 1 was quite refreshing and very nice to see some key differences in the meta. Next up here, we had Manju and Friends. This is the Odotic pile where you're basically going to be using the Mitsurugi stuff to generate boards, but also the Nayuya and Friends are going to kind of turbo through and be able to get some setup and be able to do the thing. And also, I think one of the greatest things was the Planet Pollutant virus, while you were able to use the Cosmic Slicers or roll to Floodgate the opponent. It actually did work out very strongly for this deck. It was able to make top 4 very easily. Next up here, we have Orcust K9. Now, one of the cool things I can say about this is having the in-house, World Chalice that you can actually use to be able to work to your advantage with the World Legacy stuff is pretty strong. Also, this Orcust deck, you could very easily bridge into the Riverstormer and go. Riverstormer is still an incredibly active piece to this, because Scrap Recycler into the Platinum Gadget is still going to remain one of the best tools you have. Next up here, we have more Radiant Typhoon. This build was actually playing Crown. As you notice, there was a difference between a lot of these lists. You know, Crown didn't show up in the other two lists, but instead you had, you know, Extra, which was another active piece to the success of this deck. But this build also chose not to play the Storm Deities, and I do think that was a bit of a mistake. I think the Storm Deities, being able to get those field resets really, really mattered in a later half of the tournament. We have also got some Lunalight action here. We're actually playing the triple heavy poly in the main deck. Though I will say this list is not playing any of the branded fusion stuff. One thing that was being discussed at the end of last format was, you know, you wanted to consider playing the branded stuff within this deck to kind of bait some hand traps. And that ended up not being a crazy part for this list. We're playing 2 Masquerade. Triple Fallen and Virtuous is fine, citing the additional as well. But this looks pretty standard, I feel like, for what you want to have. And your last top 8 list here is actually going to be our Exo Sister Challenger. Actually, this is playing the Triple Crown. This is going to be one of the builds that you kind of expected to be working around Crown, because, I mean, this at least ensures that your keyboard's going to go. Playing the Returnia, side decking the Vadis. We have the Deltas and the Gamma in the side deck as well, so you can actually access these if need be. And we've got the 2 Fallen and Virtuous, giving you probably, you know, the good cleanup that you want to see. So now we dip on down into top 16. Now, top 16, you do see your first Albaz Draco Tail variant, which is crazy to think that this deck had to work so hard, but yet it felt like it came so short of, you know, the overall mark that this deck was trying to do. You know, we're also playing Triple Fallen and Virtuous in here, which, I mean, was fine. Just every time these started feeling like they were resolving this tournament, you know, I felt like they were going to get ashed and cut off. We were also side decking the Mysterion for this list. Next up here, we have more Vanquish Soul Canine. You do get to see some variations here with your different list, going with the 2 Heavy Burger, which I think is fine. You've also got the 1 Kaiser Varius. So, I mean, you've only got to deal with 3 bouncers this format. You also do get to see the anti-magic arrows coming up as that active tech choice to actually try to combat, you know, all of the back row that your opponent's going to be setting up. And, I mean, you kind of got to do what you got to do, because MST is going to have some crazy interactions for you. Next up is Sky Striker. Striker did pretty decent this tournament, honestly. I'm actually really happy to see that one of these did make top cut. Obviously, you know, you're still focusing on the Fallen and the Virtuous. No Crown in here. This list opted to not need it, which I think was kind of reassuring. We do have 2 Thrust in the main deck, which was pretty good. Your Thrust targets are still DDR. You've also got the Aoi if you need to get into the little hand rip off of the Shizuku, play around things. And then, of course, you know, you have your reload options here for Fallen and Virtuous. Not too bad. Next up here, we have more Radiant Typhoon. This list actually playing the Double Crown. You also do get to see we're going with the 2 Storm Deities in here. But you also do see we have another list here opting to play the Extras to kind of generate that advantage tree so we can keep on playing. You also do get to see Denko Sekka coming in as a major player of a tech choice. Which actually this card was really, really strong. Also, hello, Yield non-fusion area. Really making some work here. And then, of course, we have more Orcust. I'm actually surprised to see the 2 of these actually performed and did well. The fact that, you know, the triple Harp Horror and, of course, the NT Sirius coming in. I mean, Sirius being a major difference between the list, I think was actually really, really nice to see. But it also shows that, you know, Sirius can actually work out for your list. We're also playing the triple Super Poly here. We're also side decking the double Droll and Lockbird. But definitely a pretty interesting choice. All right, we've also got some Malice back here, actually main decking the 1 Dimensional Fissure. It's interesting to see that they chose to play the Dimensional Fissure in the list even at all. I figured this would be something that you would like want to side deck as a 3 of. That way, you know, when you could actually see it, it does make that much of a difference. But they actually opted to just flush it into the side deck, which, or flush into the main deck as a 1 of, which, I mean, I guess. We've also got our other challenger here. This was Radiant Typhoon Malice. One of the things that you gotta be aware of if you're playing this is you gotta be careful of getting Cyverse locked. especially like if you're using, you know, Wizard to extend out, because he is going to bully you and make it so that, you know, you got to be a little bit careful. All right. I do think, though, that having these extender pieces for the deck felt very good. You also do get to see here that Dimensional Fissure is doing its job, but also Cherubini got to act as an additional starter for this list. And then the last list we have here is the Yummy Radiant Typhoon pile, which this was an interesting takeaway for the list, but I mean, we still classify this as Radiant Typhoon because, I mean, basically you're still using the multiple piece engines to go. But this deck does have the advantage of using the Gravity Collapse package to, you know, kind of detour the opponent, which is not too terrible, I will say. So, I mean, this was definitely interesting, but we'll have your rest of your top 32 this afternoon. So please, leave a comment down below, tell me what you guys think. See your beautiful faces back here in day, guys. Patrons, thank you.
Thank you so much for watching. Check out these other videos.